Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I hope you've all had your lunch and are ready for the afternoon session of Design Week Philippines 2022 Design for All. My name is Kylie Misa. I am the co-founder of WVN Living, a women-owned enterprise that works with artisan communities in the Philippines to co-create handmade lifestyle products in the hope of supporting local artisans and sustaining living traditions. And I will be your host and moderator for today. Earlier this week, we were privy to two conversations on the now and the next in design. Design Center Executive Director Rhea Matute discussed the state of Philippine design alongside design luminaries of the country. Meanwhile, representatives of Design Center's divisions have had discussions with stakeholders to talk about the accessible design assistance that Design Center offers throughout the year in the agency's Design Center Brief. Today, in partnership with British Council Philippines, we continue sparking the necessary conversations revolving around design, particularly Filipino indigenous cultures and its role in sustainability and pushing forth the country's very own sustainable development agenda. This talk is in partnership with the British Council Philippines Woven Networks program that aims to strengthen the voices of local communities by highlighting their sustainable practices and vital role of artisans. This talk was crafted specifically for the assertion that Indigenous is innovative. And we'll see today how Indigenous design is an indelible part of Filipino design as we spotlight Indigenous voices, those who co-create with them, and the old and new technologies that can help keep our forests stay intact for generations. Indeed, there is a need to revisit our roots and forge on as designers bring with us our rich heritage of craftsmanship and artisanship wherever our talents take us. Before we kick off the session, this would not be possible with our Design Week partners. Together with the Design Center of the Philippines, Design Week Philippines is made possible by the Department of Trade and Industry, our co-presenters, Tourism Promotions Board, First United Building, and Hub Make Lab, our program partners, our design mentors, our design partner, our live stream partner, our online magazine partner, our media partner, our government partner, and our satellite events. Let's tell the Design Week story together. Post on your timelines, grids, and stories to capture FOMO-worthy moments and quotable learnings, and use the hashtags DesignWeekPH 2022, hashtag Design for All. All right, so before we dive in, let's do a warm-up. So on the screen, you'll see a QR code, which will lead you to Mentimeter, where we'll get a sense check of what's on everyone's mind. And if you're having a hard time with a QR code, you may log on to www.menti.com and use the code 47171895. So if you didn't get to get a screenshot of the QR code, it's up. The Menti code is up on screen right now. So let's start with question 1. In one word, what is Filipino design for you? That's a really beautiful question. What is Filipino design for you? We'll give you a few seconds to type in your answers on Menti. I see a few of them already here. Thank you for your great insights. I see personal, masterpiece, innovative, rich, upgraded, historical. If I were to add to the Menti, I would actually put rooted in nature. What with our rich natural resources, we have so much to take inspiration from, right? All right, that's a lot. May malasakit, filled with love. Wow, sustainable, grounded, nature-driven. Exactly, yeah. Historical, intricate, spiritual. You know, this is amazing because this really shows the soul or the essence of Filipino design, and all these answers are really amazing and great. All right, you know, it just keeps going on and on. I keep seeing it, shuffling and shuffling because there's so much to say about Filipino design. And we are taking note of this. Thank you for your contributions. Cultural identity, so much. Oh my gosh, vibrant, traditional. I love it. All right, so maybe we can move on to the second question. We do have another question for you, and it's, what is your wish for Philippine design? So we're on our 11th year of Design Week Philippines, and we want to ask you, what is your wish for Philippine design as the festival enters a new decade? Maybe this one needs a few more seconds to think about. Oh, I love this. For it to recognize its own excellence. That is beautiful. More independent designers to flourish, inclusion, ingenious, erase capitalism. Wow. Strong, strong assertions. To be more accessible to the worldwide market, to understand the beauty in its rawness, more multidisciplinary collaboration to sustain. Beautiful. Become an AI adopter. There's so much, you know, that we want for Philippine design, especially, you know, as we are future thinking. And, you know, this is exactly what the session is about. We are going to be future thinking, but also rooting ourselves in, you know, indigenous knowledge. So thank you everyone for letting us know what's on your mind. These are really very great insights. So much future thinkers over here. Okay, well, again, we'll keep this in mind. We are taking note of all of your insights. And maybe we should start the ball rolling because, you know, we're going to be learning a lot today. And we can start with learning more about the Woven Networks program of the British Council in the Philippines. And let's watch this short video. At this point, we'd like to welcome Mary Ann Palacio from the British Council in the Philippines to tell us more about the program.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Marianne Palacio, the project coordinator for Woven Network Scoping Phase, speaking this afternoon on behalf of the British Council. Thank you, Karina and team, for inviting us to share about the Woven Networks project, a one-year partnership between the Forest Foundation of the Philippines and the British Council in collaboration with the National Museum of the Philippines. British Council's work supports peace and prosperity by building connections, understanding and trust between people in the UK and countries worldwide. We support people in building networks and exploring creative ideas, getting a high-quality education, and gaining internationally recognized qualifications. Our arts program strengthens engagement between the UK and the Philippines by supporting creative enterprise, innovation, and inclusive growth. We bring artists and audiences together to share and exchange creative ideas, enable organizations and artists to find new ways of connecting with and understanding each other through arts and culture. We tackle global challenges through arts and culture to provide positive change. The Woven Networks project, which just recently concluded its first phase, the scoping and networking phase, is a research grant program awarded to 9 grantees to investigate on the issues most craft artisans, especially women, are facing to sustain a community livelihood from the use of non-timber forest products such as rattan, abaca, nito, sabutan, and many others that are mostly grown from our forests. While discovering new products and materials, recovering lost cultural arts and heritage, and recovering from the impact of a pandemic-stricken economy, we must work together towards the sustainable management of both crafts, livelihood, and forests. But sustainable management for the sake of the forest alone is not significant at all. We must consider the more important part of the equation, and these are the people who rely heavily on the forest for their home, their source of materials, and livelihood foundation. We must understand the undeniable relationship between the forest and indigenous cultures, the preservation of ancestral and cultural heritage while collaborating with New World designers on contemporary design forms for better marketability of products. We must meet current consumer preferences and demands so we could expand markets. During the grantees' research, they have discovered new opportunities, such as the possibility of ecotourism that could help sustain the future of communities relying on forest resources, cultural heritage, and livelihood. They have found new fibers and raw materials that have potential use, like pineapples and other fruits, natural dyeing and weaving fibers and plants that could replace harmful chemical dyes. Craft makers or artisans may not demand recognition, but it would help to acknowledge their distinctive skills and designs by cataloging them for resource and future references. Some of the grantees have exposed new communities of indigenous cottage weavers in some areas, adding a new variety of materials and new modes of designs and patterns into the archives of the weaving industry. Design collaboration is not a new thing. Many of the finest works of art are a product of different, fresh, innovative, and exciting ideas from various creative minds. The collaboration program under the Woven Networks had allowed the grantees for expansion of scope based on the UK collaborators' expertise on various fields that were relevant to the Indigenous community. Collaboration that paved the way for existing and neglected networks and helped develop new strategies, bubbling themes, combining varying ethos to overcome market slump, reinvigorating the weaving industry to withstand the challenges of hard times brought by the pandemic and a fluctuating economy. Distant collaborations could indeed be very challenging. However, a tighter and meaningful collaboration will soon ensue between the grantee and its UK stakeholder in the upcoming months when phase 2 of the Woven Network project will commence. Design collaboration promises more exciting transformations and more sophisticated finish to the artisans' works. Despite the hurdles and challenges faced by the grantees during their scoping research, they were able to provide us with useful and meaningful insights into their journeys that had been informative, educational, and enlightening. It was indeed a worthwhile discovery of many wonderful possibilities. We gladly invite you all to learn more about the Woven Networks project by viewing the virtual exhibition. Please follow at PH British on Instagram to learn future opportunities. The virtual exhibition introductory video that will follow presents the highlights of each project, their focal landscapes, the raw materials, the products, the process, and the artisans. An insight on the program evaluation by the monitoring and evaluation consultant, notes from the virtual exhibition curator, and woven heritage artifacts from the National Museum of the Philippines were also added. You can access the virtual exhibition through the MSWay platform. Again, thank you DCP team for the great opportunity given us this afternoon. It truly is a pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
From Land to Loom, From Fiber to Form is the virtual exhibition component of the Woven Network's research project. It presents the highlights of the scoping research through a digital platform. It emphasizes the key findings of the research grantees from their interaction and shared engagement with partner communities. The scoping grants pave the way for identifying paths towards inclusive sustainability of forests and communities that rely on them. The virtual exhibition references objects from the National Museum of the Philippines collections and is among several educational materials of the Woven Network's initiative.
Thank you, Ms. Palacio. Interestingly, both our speakers for this session, Jeannie Laccay of Aruga Handwovens and Noreen Bautista of Panublix, are actually part of the Woven Networks program. So first, let's hear from Jeannie Laccay, an Isinay weaver and the owner of Aruga Handwovens. Jeannie started her journey when she decided to baby wear her son with an aban, or the traditional woven wrap used by her ancestors. Her relationship with weaving deepened as she discovered that the art is in her blood as an Isinay. To expound on how Aruga Handwovens embodies the distinctly Filipino approach to Aruga or care, please welcome Jeannie Laccay.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Jeannie Laccay, a modern Isinay weaver and founder of Aruga Handwovens. And this is our story. A brief background on how Aruga Handwovens started. It all started because I chose to baby wear my bunso. One of the many benefits is that baby wearing creates a sense of security for the baby. It creates a stronger bond between the mother and the child. Traditionally, our ancestors carry their young with a piece of cloth, which they call aban or woven wrap in English. Though there are a lot of modern baby carriers nowadays, like ring sling and buckle carriers, which is easier to use, I still chose to baby wear with an aban because it is like dancing. It creates movement where you and your child only understand. Baby wearing for me is not only about carrying your child and going about your business, but it is about the relationship you create with your child. I want my baby to enjoy our baby wearing journey. That's why I want him to feel comfortable. I bought and tried all kinds of woven wraps I see locally and abroad. Most are machine woven, especially the ones that are made abroad, and some are hand woven here in the Philippines. I can't find exactly the softness and texture I wanted for our aban. That's why I thought of making one for us. I started researching and learning about weaving, read and watched videos on how to weave. My husband is the reason why I was able to start weaving. I read to him an Ifugao law that says, in recognition of the child, the father must give the mother an oban as a tool to carrying the child on her back. GB and I scheduled, my husband and I scheduled a trip to PTRI, or the Philippine Textile Research Institute. It is a government agency where they study about Philippine textile. They have machines that can produce weaving threads from raw materials to finished product. It is also where they teach weaving to those who are interested. This is where I met Ate Josie Garlitos, master weaver of PTRI. Her husband manufactures looms. PTRI offers weaving classes, but since my bunso was still a baby at the time, I can't commit to the everyday traffic going to Taguig from Quezon City. So I decided to watch YouTube videos on how to weave, and with the help of Ate Josie, who guided me throughout my learning, I was able to weave my first baby wrap. With lots of help from Ate Josie, I was able to pull it off. I was already weaving baby wraps for my customers from all over the world. This was the time my mom told me the history about Isinais as one of the best weavers.
Ang kultura upang ito ay pangalagaan at pag-ibungin, ay dapat ito ay kasalukuyan nagpapatuloy at hindi nilagay. Ngunit ang katutubong Isinay, kasabay ng marami sa kanilang kultura, ay patuloy sa pagsisikap ng muling pagbuhay, pagpapanumbalik at pagpapasigla ng kanilang kultura at pagkakakilanlan na nakahiblay sa bakul ng kanilang alaala sa loob ng mahabang panahon. Ang manawid o paghahab ay isa sa ito. Ang manawid bilang kultura at pagkakakilanlan ng mga Isinay ay totoong ganap na naisantabi sa kasalukuyang panahon at walang bakas nito sa mga komunidad ng Isinay. Walang kabulatan ng mga batang generasyon na sa kanilang dugo ay nananalaykay ng pagiging mahusay ng mga anak. Kailangan marami sa mga sinuunang dokumento, pagsasalarawan at pagsasaliksik. Ang ganap na tumutukoy at nag-uugnay sa paghahabi bilang kultura ng mga Isinay na nasa mataas na antas. Gumagawa ng sariling leeng o kasuotan, ang kanilang indong, lahat, tapis o saya, bulbul o headdress, at higit sa lahat ay ang paggawa nila ng prestisyosong uwas pinukuhan o kumot na pagbalot sa yumapo na kanyat at kilala sa mga patutubo dito sa Cordillera. Ang uling paghabi ng uwas pinukuhan ay naitala noong 1978 na hinabi ng Inang Pilipa, mayangat estilo, at sa loob ng higit na 4 na dekada ay tuluyang iniwan ang kulturang ito. Marahil ang nagpang-4 na dekada ay hindi ganoon kahabang panahon upang sabihin tuluyang wala ng alaala ang kasalukuyan sa kulturang ito. Ang pagkawala ng kultura ng manawid ay hindi naginap sa loob lamang ng 4 na dekada. Ang pagsisikap ng muling pagpapanumbalik ng kulturang ito ay sadyang maghirap at nangangailangan ng ibayong pagsisikap. Ngunit habang buhay ang Isinay ay may pagkakataon para dito.
I was surprised because now I understand why I got into this craft. I understand why it is easy for me to understand the house of weaving because it is in my blood. As I learned more about our weaving culture, my reason for this weaving adventure got deeper and more meaningful. During the pandemic, last October 2020, I taught weaving to my fellow Isinays in our province. We had 12 participants, ages 18 years old to 65 years old. Most of them were 35 years and below. My goal is to bring back the weaving tradition to the Isinays because it was not passed on to the younger generations, and we lost it for a long time. At that time, I taught them the weaving technique I knew, which is the upright loom weaving with 4 shaft looms. Because of this livelihood project, our weavers were given the opportunity to have a stable income. They were able to survive the pandemic. Dr. Annalyn Amores, or Dr. Ikin, an anthropologist who researched about the Isinay culture and language, mentioned about ikat as the traditional weaving technique used by our ancestors. I tried ikat and I researched about it, but there were no accurate videos showing the details on how to prepare the designs on the warp. So I still did an ikat where I randomly dyed colors on the warp before weaving. It came out beautiful, but it was not still the ikat technique of our ancestors. Then came Miss Patricia and Reneta, who contacted and asked Dr. Ikin's help to organize an ikat weaving workshop. Doc Ikin pulled all her resources and connections to make the workshop possible with the funds granted by the British Council. The ikat workshop was held last July at Kiangan, Ifugao. It is where Manong Marlon Martin is based. He is a weaver and the spokesperson of the weavers in Kiangan, Ifugao. The workshop was exciting and humbling experience. I had to temporarily forget about what I learned to be able to fully accommodate this new knowledge. It is a totally different weaving technique, and I am so happy to finally have this new skill. The day before the workshop, we visited the Ifugao Museum, where we can see all the displayed woven fabrics of the Ifugaos and the different tribes in the Philippines. The woven fabrics are beautiful and are truly works of art. Day 1 in the workshop, we did warping, tying, and dyeing. Warping is the preparation of yarns on the loom. Tying is the process where we do the designs. This tying part is where the colors won't affect the yarns while dyeing. And dyeing is the part where we dye our color or color the yarns by boiling it for an hour in water with the desired color. The first day was tiring, but very productive. Everyone was in high spirit and excited for the next day. On day 2, we did dyeing, continue dyeing, then drying, and rewarping. Rewarping is one of my favorite process. This is where we get to see the design we made during the tying process for the very first time. Of all the process, this part gives us the boost to continue on. Day 3, we did the fun part, which is the weaving process. I always say that the weaving part is like a printer. This is where we get to finally see the finished product of all our hard work while we weave. Later in the afternoon and evening, we had our awarding and socialization. We get to relax and congratulate each other. And of course, had some social drinks to end the day. Ikat is a different weaving technique. It is a tedious process to make one project. The gist of the whole process is that warp threads are dyed first before weaving. The designs you see in an ikat fabric is obtained through tying and dyeing. I learned during the workshop while we were sharing stories. During the early days, dyeing yarns is sacred and done usually during the night when everyone is asleep. As an Isinay, I felt lucky and thankful that the Ifugals were willing to teach us this weaving technique. They still consider us as Cordilleran, their sisters and brothers, despite of not being part of the Cordilleras politically now. Kuya Marlon mentioned that they don't usually teach this weaving method to other people outside the Cordilleras. This workshop is very important for us to be able to reclaim and preserve our culture. Kuya Marlon gave me an indigo seedling for us to plant in Dupax del Sur, our Isinay town. Indigo is the plant where we get the natural indigo from. This seedling is very symbolic. It symbolizes the unity of the indigenous people from the Cordillera and helping out their brothers and sisters to reclaim the lost tradition. Our town, Dupax del Sur, is rich in natural resources. We have a lot of mountains and forests that is well preserved, especially forests in our far-flung barangays. Whenever we talk to locals living in the area, they tell us stories about how they used to hunt wild animals in the forest. They stop when they learn to raise animals for food, having their own poultry farms. Now in these modern times, they are still wild animals living in the forest of Dupax del Sur. They have sightings of wild deers and boars. In connection to weaving, our Pasiking basket weavers get their raw materials, such as rattan, from our forest. There are also stories from our elders that there used to be a lot of cotton plants in Dupax del Sur. These stories give us hope that our forest is a rich source of raw materials for our weaving back in the days. As a modern weaver who is already equipped with the traditional ikat technology, I am excited to produce handwoven products with the fusion of traditional and modern techniques. A modern Isinay weaver's interpretation of ikat. I think this is the beginning of finally bringing back the traditional weaving technology we once had, to teach more Isinays and give them the opportunity to have a sustainable income without them looking for jobs away from their family. It is time to bring back the ikat tradition we once had. Bringing this tradition back, this weaving technique to the Isinays is a tribute to our skillful weavers, our ancestors. Because hand weaving is a craft skillfully and delicately done by the artist. I call weavers artists because their work is carefully thought of. Every strand of the final piece went through their hands. The design that they planned sometimes is not exactly how they envisioned, but still equally stunning as originally planned. Hand-woven products are a bit more expensive than the machine wovens because it is the artist's hand and heart we pay for. To hand weave a piece of cloth in this age of machine is insanity, they say, but for me, it is art with a heart. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed my presentation.
Thank you, Jeannie. That is such an amazing journey that you had. And it's so nice to see a supportive community from other weaving communities, academe, other organizations that are really trying to help you revive this. And it's a beautiful journey of rediscovery. And as you said, it's a fusion of traditional and modern techniques. And we are so excited for your community to go through this with you and to see what's next for the Isinay weavers. So thank you again, Jeannie. And we can probably go to the next speaker, Ms. Noreen Bautista. Noreen is a co-founder and CEO of Panublix, a tech sourcing platform and marketplace that aims to connect designers with sustainable tropical textiles and artisan craft in Southeast Asia, starting with the Philippines. A certified innovation professional by the Global Innovation Management Institute, Noreen was also recognized by the World Economic Forum as a global shaper and is also one of the 40 pioneer women social entrepreneurs of Ashoka, Philippines, and S&P's Global's Women Together for a Better Normal program. Please join me in welcoming Noreen Bautista.
Hello, maayong adlaw sa inyo tanan. Good afternoon from Iloilo City. So thank you so much Design Center and British Council for the invitation. As you can see, I am Ilongga, and the name Panublix actually comes from our Hiligaynon word, which means panublion or heritage. And as someone who has been born and raised in Iloilo, this has always been my hugot. It's, I think, the same challenge of Filipinos in general, of identity, because as Nick Joaquin famously said, the identity of a Filipino is someone who's always searching for his identity. And one of the reasons why I really wanted to start Panublix, actually, my first business was also related to crafts, but I also got into the technology space. But after, I think almost 10 years, actually, Kylie is actually a college classmate. But since then, we've really come back full circle. And I think actually the pandemic was very instrumental in that, where we're going back to our heritage, to our roots, which is really what this whole session is about, right? So briefly about Panublix. Why are we starting this? There's good news and bad news. The good news is fashion is actually bouncing back. I think because of the pandemic, the sustainability movement is accelerating. So we're seeing a growth in ethical fashion that could reach around $15 billion by 2030. And this includes our handloom weaving. So good news for our weavers, there's really a huge market. Now, the bad news is, unfortunately, many of our weavers use fossil fuel produced polyester, and it really contributes to the climate crisis. As a matter of fact, 1.35% of our synthetic fibers of global oil consumption are from synthetic fibers. And this affects our rural artisans and farmers that are producing for the fashion industry. And this is not something theoretical for us. We actually have been dealing, we recently had the Odette typhoon last Christmas, and we're also bracing for the strong typhoon seasons this year. And our weavers are very much affected. So we really started this because, so these are our customer personas, and these are real people. And we have Ma'am Elda. She is a master weaver here in Iloilo, weaving hablon. And she has been also deeply affected by the pandemic. 90% of her sales decreased. And also she's using a lot of polyester. And one of the reasons why the limit to the market access is there because especially if you export the products in Europe, they are basically banning the use of synthetics. And on the other hand, my co-founder Margs, she is a designer, and she recognized that there's this opportunity, right, to co-design with Ma'am Elda for her customers like me, because I just really want to wear nice clothes that don't harm the environment and also supports communities. So there really is actually a market need. So what we're building is a sourcing platform and marketplace, connecting designers to regenerative tropical textiles and artisan craft. So we can design for climate positive, regenerative lifestyles, which is the future really of what we're trying to do. So in line with the topic, our British Council research, because we are actually a technology startup, focused on how technology can help weaving enterprises, specifically in the Sierra Madre region. And that's where my co-founders, we actually have 5 co-founders, including myself, and many of them or most of them went to Isabela. So why Isabela? We're working closely with the Philippine Textile Research Institute's Regional Yarn Production and Innovation Center. And this is actually a government investment that really hopes to address the dependency of our textile industry, especially our weavers, on polyester, because they produce tropical fibers like cotton, pineapple, and abaca. And the first one was in Iloilo, and we have signed an agreement to be the marketing partner. And the second one is in Isabela. And we have been told that the focus of this yarn center will be on the bamboo fiber. And bamboo happens to be a non-timber forest product, where if you promote it to be of use to communities, it will lessen the dependence on forest resources. And yeah, this is gonna be hopefully something that will help protect also the Sierra Madre forest, which is the biggest coverage of our forest in the country. And we basically wanted to do a scoping research because we're developing an actual tech platform. So how can we best address this, especially where indigenous communities are concerned? Now, my fascination actually with weaving ever since then is it really is very directly connected to technology. You know why? I don't know if many of you know, but it was a woman, a weaver, who actually founded the first computer programming language. So this is Ada Lovelace, and she actually got inspired from a weaving loom. And I'm not a weaver. I actually am very jealous of Miss Jeannie because she learned, and it's in her roots. I've been trying to learn weaving from our weavers, and that's why I have mad respect for handloom weavers, because it's natural for them. They're able to consistently weave patterns without getting distracted. And when I look at how the process goes, warp, wefts, patterns, it's all mathematical, it's all coding. And that's why I always tell my team and everyone else that weavers are actually coders. And for me, this is the exciting part, to look at this whole industry from the lens of technology and innovation. So these are some of the communities that we worked with during our scoping research. This is the Indigenous Inabel Crafts. Hello to Ma'am Andrea. I'm sure many of our enterprises and entrepreneurs are also sourcing from them. We also worked with a very young group. This is the Young Kankanae Loom Weavers. And as their name suggests, they are from the Kankanae community. They historically have, I guess, migrated from the Ifugao regions to the Isabela area. And it's interesting because although they're very new as a community and as an enterprise, they were also organized through the help of DTI in the Young Entrepreneurs Program. But the fact that they initiated that, they wanted to learn weaving, as what Jeannie mentioned, to connect with their roots and to sustain their heritage. And hearing stories like that actually is the purpose of why we do what we do. Now, as I mentioned, we're really also very much aware how climate change is affecting our weaving industry. This is Typhoon Agaton. It really also affected our farmers. And these are the people who are producing our fibers. Now, what are we trying to build? The tech startup world always talks about building platforms, right? You have the Grab platform, the Facebook platform, the Uber, the Airbnbs. So what that technically means is it's an ecosystem where various players are exchanging value with each other. So whether it's the material producers, the farmers, working with our yarn spinners, in this case, the PTRI, another private yarn producers, and they deliver it to the weavers through our platform also. And the weavers create beautiful weaves that designers can use, and designers create it into beautiful products that consumers can use. So yeah, this is exactly what we are building. And of course, it's easier said than done, but how are we doing it? First, we want to also address the economic sustainability of our weavers. I know there's so many social enterprises already, like Kylie's enterprise, Miss Jeannie's enterprise, and all the other wonderful social entrepreneurs that we've been meeting. And it's really just a matter of making sure that we are also sustaining them in terms of how do they develop their business? Are they accessing international markets? And with the direction now of where sustainability is going, how do we get them access to these climate change funds that are already cropping up? And that's also one of the results of our research, where if we get data points on the weaving enterprise ecosystem that can provide environmental, social, and governance data, which financial institutions are now paying closely attention to. So in a way, if weaving enterprises can prove that they are sustainable, both on the social, environmental, and economic side, they can actually access more capital. So this is the movement of sustainable finance. This is something that we are about, actually it's already live on our website, but we're soft launching it. It's called the Panublix co-design. So over a year, we've been working already with designers who have been converting our yarns into textiles. And they've been doing wonderful products, like this is Binky Pitogo from Iloilo. And our goal is to also make it like a pre-order model. So we only produce what the customers are ordering. And yeah, so check it out. Now, what's next for us? We recognize that the key to regenerative economies, to climate action, is actually going deep into the farms and making sure our materials are really aligned to the sustainability standards. And this is why we have a research and development team. So my co-founder is, one of our co-founders is also into R&D, and we have access to some labs here through the various research and development institutions to make sure we help our farmers grow their fibers through regenerative agriculture, and we plant the right cotton varieties, for example, that could meet the European market, where it's the biggest sustainability market so far. And through technology, we are building a supply chain platform. We have just accessed some funds from our DOST, and we're waiting for it to be deployed so we can really build actually the digital platform that we've been pitching. So this could give the data points needed for what I mentioned. So yeah, this ends my presentation, and we really are just here to contribute to the ecosystem and hopefully be able to use technology to help sustain this indigenous craft, and also so we can thrive even amidst climate change, in a word, be climate resilient amidst the disruptions. So madamo gid nga salamat. Thank you. If you want to connect, that's our email right there. So thank you so much.
So thank you again, Noreen. Your platform is amazing. How digital transformation can also transform materials and makers and connect them to the market is something that hasn't been seen, especially here in the Philippines. So represent, in Southeast Asia, this is a really new, really new platform and technology that we are all proud of. So thank you again for your contribution. Perhaps, we have now both our speakers in the panel, and maybe we can ask a few questions. I hope you don't mind. I'll be asking something about your experience. Maybe you can start with Jeannie. So Jeannie, what would you say was the perception of Isinay weaving and ikat dyeing growing up? Because as you mentioned, the traditions were kind of buried for a few years. And maybe back then it wasn't so popular or so common knowledge. So how was that like growing up? And was it known as technology back then?
Growing up, there was no really any evidence that we were weavers. So we didn't experience any weavers. I haven't seen any weavers in our town when we were growing up. So I got surprised when my mom told me that we were one of the best weavers during the early days. So well, yung parents ko, our family wasn't weavers, so nobody in our family are weavers. Ilang generation walang weavers. So nagulat ako na I got into this craft.
And that is by serendipity almost, right?
Yeah.
Now, like in terms of technology, do members of the community see themselves as, mathematicians, or like as experts in a way? Do they see it as technology?
For me personally, yes. Whenever I weave, I feel like I'm doing a lot of math, especially dun sa designing part and when you're dressing the loom. That's when kaya nobody needs ayokong whenever I work on my loom, I don't like talking to people because mawawala yung numbers ko in my head. So pag nawala yon, I have to go back and redo the whole thing. So parang ganon. Pero yung pag mathematicians, when we talk about mathematicians, it is very evident in our farmer community, yung farmers namin dun sa Dupax del Sur, because sa Dupax, yung main livelihood ng mga tao doon is farming. So siguro doon nila na express or na-apply yung pagiging mathematicians nila in their farming. So very evident dun sa farming. For the weavers that I taught now, yes, they're thinking the same, na mahirap daw because it is a lot of math. Kala nila simple lang, pero yun nga, sabi nila, we're joking around na, kailangan pala namin maging math experts. So,
Yeah, it's like the counting, no?
Yeah.
And they don't get distracted.
Mm-mm.
I think that's also something that I found fascinating. And this is why, especially for computer programmers or anyone who requires concentration, we actually encourage them to get into any craft.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone has been watching the Netflix K-drama Startup. The software programmer actually is knitting because he says it relaxes him.
Mm-mm.
And that's also one thing we saw with craft in general. So yeah, it's very mathematical.
Mm-mm.
And Noreen, and in your experience, and you talk about technology and like how weaving kind of connects to that. What do you think is the place of indigenous crafts in technology, in the Industrial Revolution? Is there a way to be in sync with each other to achieve sustainable development?
Yeah, definitely. Kylie, one thing that we've seen in sustainability literature, it's been very consistent that indigenous practices are really key to be resilient and even adapt to these climate change events. And it really is already embedded in the indigenous practice. As what Jeannie mentioned, from the farm level, and my co-founder is a scientist, when we visit the farmers, they have such an intricate knowledge about the health of the soil, the movement of the weather patterns. And because it's something that has been passed on to them already by many generations. But from a scientific perspective, it's very sound. And, these were centuries and centuries of intangible cultural heritage and knowledge systems passed on that are actually what's needed to be adopted by everyone, even those in the cities, policymakers, everyone, because there's really this theme of going back. If we are going to really be sustainable, going back to nature, regenerating it, moving away from extractive practices. And in a way, it's us who have to learn from indigenous people. And that's also why we're building our platform. And that's why we say it's actually a collaborative design platform, because it's not we help communities. It's actually the communities also helping us, because we learn from each other. And as long as we're taking that journey towards sustainability, we can journey together. So definitely indigenous practices are core to sustainability.
There's a question from the audience, no? If I'm not an IT who's deeply rooted in the art of weaving, am I allowed to practice it and teach it to more advocates of cultural preservation? Am I violating any form of cultural appropriation? Maybe Jeannie, would you like to answer this?
Yeah. I think as long as you're not as long as you're knowledgeable about the patterns that you're going to teach, then it's not a problem. But if you're going to teach naman yung hindi naman patterns sa traditional patterns, then it's okay, because I started not knowing anything about our tradition, or not knowing anything about weaving. So what I did is that I just weave and do my own patterns, and hindi naman, it doesn't violate anything. So the weaving part is not, anyone can do it, but yung gagayahin mo yung patterns and without knowing about it, gagayahin mo yung patterns of yung ancestors of a certain tribe, then that's when you should magpaalam, or at least know the history of it if you're going to teach it.
Thanks, Jeannie. And I guess last question for Noreen. So do you have any idea on how technology can help the degeneration of damaged indigenous materials? Is that something you've kind of looked into or seen? Yeah, I think the question is quite an interesting one.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And actually, not in our team currently, but we have been looking at, the science of conservation techniques. I think perhaps the National Museum would have more knowledge about this. But, if you look even just at the documentaries of how museums conserve indigenous textiles, it's interesting right now, to be honest. There is... we've been told, because Iloilo used to be known as the textile capital of the Philippines. We actually have the Western Visayas Regional Museum of the National Museum, and a Museum of Economic History. And it has been documented that 19th century, 18th century textiles from cotton, and it actually is the best variety of fiber. Unfortunately, these are in the museums of our colonizers, and it would be interesting if we could sort of gene sequence, like get a sample of that. And this is where like scientific things like genomics are in place, because you can get what is the variety of that cotton and find the seeds, give it to our farmers, and we can, revive the quality fibers. Because the quality of our textiles and our yarns is really all about the fiber, how it's farmed. And that's why we're going back really to this. If the food industry has farm to table, we're going towards farm to fashion. And this is why we're advocating for regenerative business models and farming and fashion, because it's really going back to helping the farmers, so that we give richness to the soil, and it can give us quality fibers and also food as well.
Thank you very much, everyone, especially Jeannie and Noreen. We hope that this session has helped you, our audience, imagine what the future of design could look like if it's guided by Indigenous knowledge and crafted with sustainability in mind. So thank you, everyone who joined today's session. We have so much in store for you in the coming days. For updates on all things Design Week, head over to our social media accounts: DTI Design Center of the Philippines on Facebook, and DTI Design Center PH on Instagram. And once again, on behalf of the Design Center of the Philippines, we would like to thank our Design Week partners, the Department of Trade and Industry, our co-presenters, Tourism Promotions Board, First United Building, and Hub Make Lab, our program partners, our design mentors, our design partner, our live stream partner, our official online magazine partner, our media partner, our government partner, and our satellite events. Keep your posts and stories coming. For all your Design Week love notes on social media, don't forget to use the hashtags #DesignWeekPH 2022, #DesignForAll. Thank you once again to our Design Week community, and we hope you can join us for the rest of Design Week Philippines 2022.
Thank you.